Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 on Friday, March 27th, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by Steve Helwagen. Steve, let's talk about what has surprised us about Ohio State's spring football practices thus far, or just anything that's interesting that stood out to us. First and foremost, Curtis Samuel working with the wide receivers yesterday at practice. At first I thought maybe they were just giving him a chance to catch some extra passes. No, they're looking to get him in the game any way they can. They might use him at hybrid. Obviously, Jalen Marshall is the starter there, but with Dontre Wilson still hobbled, they're using Paris Campbell at the hybrid as well, but they need more bodies there. But Ed Warner did not rule out, splitting Curtis Samuel out wide at times. I tend to think Curtis Samuel is going to split his reps between running back and hybrid. But, Steve, it is very interesting they're getting him reps at wide receiver this spring.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's just a combination of things. You've got Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to get his 20 to 25 carries a game, is going to be the guy, primarily lining up at the running back position for any meaningful snaps at any of the games. I think once they get the games under wraps, they'll get him out of there. But I think Curtis Samuel, this is an indication the few times that he did have the ball, either in practice last year. I remember he ripped off a 50-yard run last spring that was pretty impressive, and sometimes in the games this past fall, he would make tremendous plays. So I just think it's a recognition or an awareness that they got to get him involved, whether it's running the ball out of the backfield or catching swing passes or catching bubble screens or even running routes downfield. I think they're going to use him in all those ways, and getting him out there this spring is just cross-training him as far as I'm concerned. And you don't just take a running back and put them out there in the slot and say, run a route. You really have to work at it because it is a precise science at this level. You have to run a perfect, crisp route. You got to have a great break. You got to catch the football. So there is some skill polishing that's involved with this, and I think that's all that this is with Curtis is, hey, we're going to put you out there, and you can work on all that and really find a way to help us.
At defensive tackle, I've been spending a lot of time, writing about this situation. Who's going to replace Michael Bennett? And, Tommy Shutt's getting first crack. Obviously, Adolphus Washington's returning at one of the defensive tackle spots, and right now they have Tommy Shutt working with the first team. I caution the listeners, spring depth charts can be tricky. Last year they had Antonio Underwood working with the first-team offensive line all of spring. I don't think they ever intended him to be a first-team offensive lineman last year, and he never saw the light of day. So just because you're getting first-team reps in the spring, a lot of times they'll throw a bone to an older guy. I did find it interesting yesterday, Steve, when they were mixing and matching guys. Tracy Sprinkle got some first-team reps at defensive tackle. This is a guy that is bulked up, was a defensive end in high school, a lot like Michael Bennett, about 6'3", 290, 295 pounds, moved him inside. So I think Tracy Sprinkle could get in the mix there. Donovan Munger's in the mix, so it's probably going to be Sprinkle, Shutt, or Munger. I'm starting to think Sprinkle might win that job. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Well, yeah, I agree with you, and I like Sprinkle a lot. I think when I was watching the interior drill, he shot through there and made a play. Michael Hill also kind of sparked a play or two in there as well. So, yeah, I like that these guys are taking the bait that Urban Meyer has thrown out there. I mean, they're not bad players. I mean, I don't think he ever meant it that way. What he meant when he said that he wasn't happy or was disappointed was that, hey, you can't use the excuse that you're a young player now. Some of those guys, this will be their third year in the program. So it's time to step up and become, at least serviceable backups, and at best, guys that push for starting reps. Shutt, to me, is also coming on a little bit. I think you see that the green light or the red light has gone on with him to where he knows that he's got to start making some difference-making type plays, or his college football career is just going to pass right on by. So, yeah, I think there's definitely a sense of urgency there. Urban Meyer spent a good bit of time yesterday down with the defensive linemen and stepped right in there at times and was even coaching them right alongside Larry Johnson. That can only be a good thing as he tutors these guys on exactly what he and the defense needs out of them. And, I'm excited to see who steps up at those spots. And you brought up Sprinkle. I think he's a guy, honestly, that could push Shutt for a starting position. And, I think we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out.
And I think it's important to point out Donovan Munger was the only backup defensive tackle that played against Alabama. That was the one game where they didn't really use much of a defensive line rotation. It was like they're going to use their main guys against Alabama and do whatever it took to win that game. But Donovan Munger was the only backup defensive tackle that played in that game. Not Tommy Shutt. Tracy Sprinkle, I think, was on maybe a secret probation, secret suspension last year. Who knows about that? But I think it's important to point out that Donovan Munger, was first on the depth chart of the backups going into that Alabama game. I always found that interesting. Another interesting thing about Springer, a surprise, so to speak, has been J.T. Barrett's progress. I did not expect him to be moving around as well as he is, Steve. Less than 4 months removed from breaking that ankle against Michigan. I thought, he'd be able to throw during spring, would be out there, limping around, but he's moving pretty well. Now, he's not going full speed, and when they scrimmage, he's not going to be, he's not going to be going live. But even Cardale Jones is going to have a black no contact jersey on when they're scrimmaging. They're not going to risk getting him hurt. But the bottom line is J.T. Barrett's a lot further along than I thought he would be. He's going through all the quarterback drills. He's throwing the ball well, of course. Cardale Jones looks great when he's throwing the ball. The ball just explodes off his hand. But J.T. Barrett really jumped out to me yesterday that he's moving around a lot better than what I expected, Steve.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is tremendous to see JT is able to get out there and do at least a little bit of stuff. It's not going to be a lost spring where he's sitting in a chair or sitting off to the side doing nothing. He's actually involved, and they're being very smart about it. They're not putting him in harm's way, which is very important, that they keep him healthy. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it is awesome to see that JT is get into the mix here. And the thing about it is, is he going to be the starter? Is Cardale going to be the starter? I don't worry too much about that. I feel that they've already crossed the threshold to where they've got the buy-in from the guys. As far as I'm concerned, it seems like all of them want what's best for the team, so it seems to me that it's all going to work out. It's just everybody just needs to be patient and let the process play out, and I think people are going to be very surprised on a pleasant side of it, of how it's all going to work out, if you ask me.
On the offensive line, one thing that's not a surprise, in my opinion, is that Chase Ferris is close to locking down that right tackle job. Ed Warner indicated to me in Dallas at Media Day before the national championship game that Chase Ferris, was probably, the odds-on favorite to win that job, and that's come to fruition. Chase Ferris looks good. All of his teammates are talking about him. Ed Warner talked him up, so Chase Ferris is going to be the right tackle, it looks like. Guys are going to push him. Jamarco Jones is going to push him, but Jamarco Jones right now is getting a lot of first-team reps at left tackle because they're resting Taylor Decker. They're also resting Pat Elflein, which is giving Evan Lyle a chance to get in there and get some first-team reps at guard. And at center, Jacoby Boren is hurt. And, Steve, I find it very interesting that Marcellus Jones is getting first-team reps at center. Now, if anything happens to Jacoby Boren during the season, we know Pat Elflein will shift over to center. They'll bring somebody else into guard. Even Billy Price can play some center. But I find it interesting that Marcellus Jones, it's kind of like he's adding to his value here. We know he can play guard. He's a pretty athletic guy for a big guy. If he can play center, that's a pretty big center, and it's pretty interesting that Marcellus Jones was repping with the first team at center yesterday.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is a position of tremendous responsibility when you talk about line calls and snapping the football in the spread. Every snap has to be perfect, has to be right at the guy's waist and right where he can catch it and do something with it immediately. So, the timing and everything, for them to put him in that position, and he's a young guy. I really, really like that. He could be the starter there for a couple of years, perhaps after Bourne is done. It's hard to say, but I think that they've really, and this is again a testament to Ed Warner, they've developed that depth. And you talked about Ferris. I think it is Ferris's job to lose at this point. I think Coach Meyer really likes Ferris a lot. I think Warner is also on board with him. Jamarco Jones is the future, obviously, but, for this season, it could be a case, as they mentioned, last year they did put Ferris in some games in place of Baldwin at times to get him some seasoning, and maybe they'll do the same thing with Jamarco Jones and Marcellus Jones this year, and possibly even Demetrius Knox if he could get back off of his injury situation. So, yeah, I look at it as a complete positive that they've developed that depth. It's not just a 5-man unit. It can be 7 to 8 guys. I mean, I think they've got the cohesiveness already down. I don't think missing spring reps is going to be, I mean, they played 15 games together. I think those guys will be just fine. If you dropped them, into the first game and didn't practice them a whole lot together, I think that they could probably handle it. Now, Virginia Tech, I guess we'll wait and see if they can handle Virginia Tech, but they did okay versus Alabama, so yeah, I'd say they'll probably be all right.
It's going to be a huge recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes. Bill Kurlick has a primer on the site right now for subscribers, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. We will also post a video of yesterday's practice this morning on the site. The video will feature Ohio State's wide receivers and quarterbacks. We will also post another practice video tomorrow on the defensive backs. Thanks to Steve Helwagen for his wisdom. Thanks to you for tuning into the show. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Take it away, best damn band in the land.